What if your favorite TV shows were secretly connected? What if beneath all the laughs, drama, and chaos, there were hidden clues, pointing to something much darker? From blue meth that sparks a zombie apocalypse to sitcoms that might not even be real, these fan theories will make you question everything you thought you knew about television. Breaking Bad and The Walking Dead. The meth that ended the world. It sounds like the kind of crossover that could only exist in a wild Reddit thread, but some fans believe there's a dark bridge connecting the world of Breaking Bad to The Walking Dead. And it all starts with a single bag of blue meth. The theory claims that Walter White's infamous formula didn't just destroy lives in Albuquerque. It destroyed the entire world. The idea is that the blue sky meth, pure and chemically unstable, caused mutations in users that ultimately led to the zombie outbreak we see in The Walking Dead. It's an outrageous concept, but what makes it so eerie is how much evidence AMC has quietly sprinkled across both shows. Let's start with the Easter eggs. In The Walking Dead's first season, Merle Dixon, that hot-headed brother of Daryl, is shown dealing blue-tinted crystal meth. Fans immediately notice that it looks almost identical to Walt's product. Later, Merle's dealer is described as a skinny white guy, which sounds suspiciously like Jesse Pinkman. And that bright red Dodge Challenger Glenn drives early in the apocalypse? It's the same make and model that Walter White bought for his son in Breaking Bad. The identical color, the same body lines. It's hard to call that a coincidence. But there's more to it than just cars and color grading. Both series were produced by AMC, which means creative teams had access to each other's props, references, and timelines. That's what makes this theory feel less like a stretch and more like a secret wink from the studio. If you dig deeper, you'll find that The Walking Dead takes place only a few years after Breaking Bad's finale. And the timeline fits eerily well. The slow disintegration of society, the mysterious outbreak that no one can explain, and the lack of a clear patient zero? It all lines up perfectly with the aftermath of a world quietly poisoned by Walter White's empire. In this version of reality, Walt's quest to secure his family's future doesn't just destroy his enemies. It destroys humanity itself. His pride and genius birth the apocalypse. The meth cooks, the addicts mutate, the infection spreads, and civilization falls apart. It's poetic, really. The story of one man's downfall rippling into the literal end of the world. Whether you believe it's canon or not, this theory changes the way you see both universes. It's not just about chemistry anymore, it's about consequence. And in that sense, Walter White might be the most dangerous villain television has ever created. Doctor Who. The Doctor and the Master are the same person. For decades, Doctor Who has explored the endless cycle of regeneration, morality, and identity. But what if the show's greatest hero and his greatest enemy were actually one and the same? According to one of the wildest theories in Whovian lore, the Doctor and the Master aren't two different Time Lords. They're two halves of the same being, forever reborn in opposition to themselves. Think about it. Every time the Doctor regenerates, he changes personality, ethics, and even emotional balance. What if, in one regeneration, his morality split? The light and dark sides of his consciousness separating into two entities. The Doctor became the savior, the protector, while the Master embodied the rage, vanity, and chaos that the Doctor buried deep inside. It would explain so much. Their inexplicable bond, the way the Doctor always hesitates to kill the Master, and how the Master constantly seems to understand the Doctor's every move before it happens. They don't just know each other. They are each other. Two reflections locked in an eternal argument about what it means to be good. The beauty of this theory lies in how Doctor Who's timeline supports it. The Time Lords play with memory, identity, and paradoxes like toys. It's not impossible that in some forgotten regeneration, the Doctor fractured, creating his own nemesis, his own punishment. It turns the show's central conflict into something deeply tragic. an eternal being trying to forgive himself through battle after battle, across centuries. In the end, maybe that's what Doctor Who has always been about. Not a war between two Time Lords, but one man's endless struggle to reconcile with the parts of himself he can't escape. Stranger Things. The loop that created the Upside Down. What if Stranger Things isn't about a portal gone wrong, but a loop that keeps restarting? One created by Eleven herself? This theory completely flips how we see Hawkins, suggesting that every major supernatural event in the series, from the Upside Down to Vecna's rise, is part of a self-made time loop caused by Eleven's powers. Here's how it works. Every time Eleven uses her abilities at full force, like when she banished One in Season 4, she tears through space and time, unknowingly recreating the Upside Down. The theory argues that this parallel world isn't some alien dimension at all, but a twisted echo of Hawkins frozen in time the exact moment she first opened that rift. That's why everything in the Upside Down is stuck in the same state, the same year, the same details, as if it's trapped in a snapshot of Eleven's guilt and trauma. The most haunting part? Vecna could actually be part of the same cycle. When Eleven sent him away, she didn't destroy him. She birthed him inside her own creation. He became the consciousness of the world she accidentally made, feeding on her emotions, her memories, her pain. Every battle they fight could just be another round in an endless loop. A girl versus the shadow she can't erase. It's poetic in a way only Stranger Things could pull off. Eleven isn't just fighting monsters. She's fighting the consequences of her own power. The Upside Down isn't another universe. It's her reflection, her mistake, repeating itself over and over again. Rugrats, Angelica's imaginary friends. At first glance, Rugrats is a sweet, innocent cartoon about babies and their wild imaginations. But dig a little deeper, and you'll find one of the darkest theories in TV history. One that turns this cheerful show into a heartbreaking study of grief and loneliness. The theory goes that all the babies in Rugrats, Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil, aren't real. They exist only in Angelica's mind. According to this idea, Angelica is a lonely little girl growing up in a world where adults are too distracted to care. To cope, she invents a group of friends, each representing a trauma she's witnessed or can't understand. Tommy, who's always brave and curious, represents the brother she never had. He was supposedly stillborn, which explains why his dad, Stu, is always obsessively making toys for the baby. Chucky, terrified of everything, embodies Angelica's fear of loss. His death explains why his father is anxious and overprotective. Phil and Lil come from a single pregnancy that ended tragically, and Angelica couldn't comprehend the difference between having one child or two. So in her mind, they became twins. It's chilling, but it explains the show's surreal tone. Everything we see is filtered through Angelica's imagination. A colorful, chaotic escape from a lonely reality. Even the adults act exaggerated and distracted, like distant figures in a child's daydream. In this theory, Rugrats isn't about childhood adventures. It's about how children process pain, how they create stories to fill the silence when the real world hurts too much. Angelica isn't the villain here. She's a kid trying to survive heartbreak the only way she knows how, by inventing friends who'll never leave her. Friends. Phoebe's lonely reality. Everyone remembers Friends as the ultimate comfort show. 6 friends, 1 coffee shop, and endless laughs. But according to one haunting theory, the entire story might be a product of Phoebe's imagination. In this version, the show isn't about friendship at all. It's about a woman on the outside, dreaming of the life she never had. Before meeting the gang, Phoebe was homeless, living on the streets of New York. She often talks about her difficult past, her mom's suicide, her time living in a car, her odd survival stories. But what if those weren't just quirky backstories? What if they were the truth? The theory suggests that Phoebe sits outside Central Perk every day, watching 6 happy, beautiful people live the life she's always wanted. Unable to cope with her loneliness, she imagines herself inside their world. A warm apartment, endless laughter, and friends who love her unconditionally. It would explain a lot about Phoebe's eccentric personality. She seems detached from reality, often referencing surreal events or breaking the logic of the show itself. She's also the only one whose job, love life, and storylines feel out of sync with everyone else's, as if she's inventing them as she goes. And those bizarre songs she sings at the cafe? Maybe they're her way of expressing the sadness she can't say out loud. If this theory is true, Friends transforms from a lighthearted sitcom into something devastatingly beautiful. The daydream of someone who just wants to belong. The laughter track, the perfect timing, the endless goodbyes. They all become echoes in Phoebe's mind. It's not just a show about friendship anymore. It's about the power of imagination to fill the void of loneliness. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will's afterlife in paradise. Now, this is a story all about how might sound like the start of a fun theme song. But according to one eerie theory, it's actually the beginning of something far darker. Fans believe The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air isn't a comedy about a kid moving to a rich neighborhood. It's a story about Will Smith's character dying and finding peace in the afterlife. Here's how it goes. In the pilot episode, Will raps about getting into one little fight on the playground, the fight that sent him to live with his aunt and uncle in Bel-Air. But what if that fight was more than just a scuffle? According to this theory, Will was shot and killed in that altercation. The taxi that takes him to Bel-Air? That's the metaphorical ride to heaven. The cab driver even being described as smelling kind of rare, possibly representing death itself. When he arrives, everything changes. He's surrounded by love, luxury, and stability, the very things his real life lacked. Bel-Air then becomes heaven, a place where Will gets the second chance he never had. His uncle and aunt aren't just relatives. They're guardian figures helping him mature and find peace. Every lesson he learns, every problem he resolves, could be his soul letting go of guilt, pain, and unfinished business from the life he lost. Even the tone of the show supports it. Every conflict wraps up neatly. Every serious issue finds resolution, and Will himself never truly leaves this perfect world. By the finale, when he says goodbye to the Banks family, it's not just a move. It's him finally accepting his fate and moving on. What seemed like a sitcom about class and culture might actually be a touching story about redemption, closure, and eternal peace. Dexter, the dream inside an asylum. Dexter was always a strange blend of dark humor and disturbing morality. A serial killer who kills other killers, somehow making audiences root for him. But one chilling theory suggests that everything we've seen, every crime, every close call, might not have happened at all. Instead, Dexter Morgan never got away with it, because he's been locked in an asylum the entire time. According to this theory, the show's events are happening inside Dexter's head, a delusional world he's built to justify his actions after being caught. The dark passenger, that voice inside him guiding his murders, is a manifestation of his fractured mind, a coping mechanism to turn guilt into purpose. By imagining a world where his killings serve a code, Dexter rewrites reality to see himself as the hero of his own twisted story. The clues are everywhere once you start looking. His interactions often feel detached, dreamlike, as if the people around him exist only when his story needs them to. He constantly narrates his thoughts, talking to himself as if performing a script for an invisible audience. Even his sister, Deborah, sometimes seems too forgiving, too emotionally inconsistent, almost like a figment shaped by his subconscious, his humanity trying to keep him grounded. And that ending, Dexter surviving a hurricane and becoming a lumberjack, never quite made sense, unless it wasn't real. Many fans interpret it as the moment he finally breaks completely, retreating deeper into fantasy after years of delusion. The mundane isolation of that final scene could symbolize his mental imprisonment, stuck in a loop of denial and self-justification. In this version, Dexter isn't a story about moral ambiguity. It's a psychological tragedy. A man haunted not by what he's done, but by the lies he tells himself to stay sane. The Office, Michael Scott's fantasy documentary. What if The Office, that hilarious, awkward mockumentary about paper sales and workplace drama, isn't really a documentary at all? What if it's all just happening inside Michael Scott's mind? According to this eerie and oddly convincing fan theory, the entire show is Michael's fantasy, a delusion he's created to make sense of his need for attention, love, and validation. Think about it. Michael Scott is desperate to be liked. He wants to be admired, respected, and remembered. But in reality, he's lonely, socially clumsy, and constantly misunderstood. The theory suggests that Michael imagines himself as the star of a grand documentary because it gives meaning to his life. The camera crew, the interviews, the endless focus on his every move, they're all part of his dream to be someone important. That's why so many of the show's moments feel a little too perfectly timed or cinematic. It's not real life. It's how Michael wishes life were. Everyone around him conveniently plays into his need for connection. Jim laughs at his jokes, Pam encourages him, Dwight idolizes him. Even when Michael's actions are cringeworthy, the documentary edits always find a way to make him look sympathetic in the end, as if the world itself bends to protect his self-image. And when Michael leaves in season 7, something strange happens. The tone of the show shifts. The absurdity fades, the mockumentary feels more grounded, and the humor grows subtler. Like the fantasy is finally fading away and reality is settling in. If this theory holds true, The Office becomes a tragic yet heartwarming story about loneliness. About a man so desperate to matter that he builds an entire world in his mind where he finally does. Game of Thrones. Bran, the boy who became the Night King. Among the countless theories that Game of Thrones sparked, few captured fans' imaginations like this one. The idea that Bran Stark, the quiet boy who could see through time, was actually the Night King all along. It sounds impossible, but the pieces fit together a little too neatly to ignore. Let's rewind to Bran's powers. After his fall, he becomes the three-eyed raven, gaining the ability to warg, to project his mind into other beings across time and space. Throughout the show, we see him influence the past, changing events and causing ripples that alter history. But this theory takes that concept to its darkest conclusion. At some point, Bran wargs too far back, into the body of the man who would become the Night King. In an attempt to stop the creation of the White Walkers, Bran might have gone back to the exact moment the Children of the Forest plunged dragonglass into a man's heart. The birth of the Night King himself. But instead of preventing it, he becomes trapped inside the man's body, forever fusing his consciousness with the monster he tried to destroy. The boy who wanted to save humanity becomes the creature destined to end it. Its tragic symmetry. The innocent child turned wise mystic becomes his own worst nightmare. The icy stare, the silence, the eerie connection between the Night King and Bran's visions. They suddenly make sense. Even the way the Night King seems to recognize Bran in the final season feels less like an enemy's glare and more like a reflection. Two versions of the same soul meeting at the end of time. If true, this theory transforms Game of Thrones into a timeless paradox. A story not of good versus evil, but of fate consuming itself. Black Mirror, one dystopian universe. Each episode of Black Mirror feels like its own nightmare. Standalone stories about technology gone too far, society breaking down, and the darkest corners of human nature. But some fans believe that these aren't separate stories at all. They're all connected, forming one massive, continuous timeline that traces the rise and fall of humanity through technology. It starts small, in episodes like the national anthem and Nosedive, where social media and politics begin to distort people's lives. The technology feels familiar, close to our world. Smartphones, social scoring, AI assistants. Then things escalate. In San Junipero, human consciousness is uploaded into computers. In White Christmas, people are punished by being trapped inside digital prisons. And by the time we reach Metalhead and Black Museum, the world has fully collapsed. Humanity has given itself over to machines. Every episode, when placed in order, feels like another chapter of the same story. A timeline where every innovation chips away at what it means to be human. Props and references tie them together too. The cookies from White Christmas appear in Black Museum. The social ranking system from Nosedive is mentioned again in Hated in the Nation. Even certain logos, products, and news tickers repeat across episodes, hinting that these events are happening in one universe at different points in time. It's a haunting idea, that Black Mirror isn't a series of warnings, but a record. A history of how our world ends, one invention at a time. By the time we reach the barren, post-human wasteland of Metalhead, the story has come full circle. The mirror, it seems, was never meant to reflect technology itself, but us. Whether it's Will Smith living in his own afterlife, or Bran Stark quietly turning into the ultimate villain, these fan theories remind us that great shows often leave room for wild imagination. And that's what makes them timeless. We keep finding new layers long after the credits roll. If you enjoyed watching, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and drop us a note in the comments letting us know what you want to see us do next.